Okay, so we're gonna figure out how we're going to do this line weight. And so we're gonna need to practice it in order to make the object look 3D. Notice that the top line is thinner and the bottom line is thicker so that it looks much more three-dimensional. It also brings out the details so that they stand out from each other. This detail or this technique is used by a lot of animators, cartoonists, graphic designers, graphic novelists. So we're gonna practice using our tracing paper. So you have 4 sheets of this in your set. So you should have at least one that's kind of clean. And I don't want you to have to worry about doing the whole thing. So you could cut or tear it in half. You can see I tore it and so kind of made a mess of it, right? But you know, if yours is a little scraggly, that's okay too. Scissors might be a better idea, right? And I'd like you to take it, put it on top of your artwork, and then just go ahead and trace one of your toys. So for you, right, your toy might be bigger than mine, right? So you would want to do like an intricate part of it, somewhere where you have a lot of detail. Okay, so you just go through here and outline everything carefully, right? You don't want to make it look super rough. All right, so take your time and outline. And you don't need to outline any more than what will fit on this little piece of newsprint that you did. So I finished tracing out on the tracing paper. You can see I didn't do the ends and I'm kind of missing part because it was overlapping with another view. If you find that it's wiggling, right, you can always tape it down, like on one edge if you wanted to. And so I put this on top of my sketchbook. Sometimes this paper is so slick that it's kind of hard to get a good grip on it. So feel free to tape it down into your sketchbook onto, you know, maybe even the backside of a work. And so what you're gonna wanna do is you can get out your object as you wanna get out the marker and the pen that were given to you. So these are not super fancy. These are things that you could find at any sort of store. You know, a Sharpie marker. We're using the ultra fine Sharpie marker. So make sure that's a skinny point. If you have nicer drawing pens that you would rather use, you are welcome to do those. So like a micron or a Pitt pen, you just want to make sure that you have one that's a little bit bigger, maybe like a 0.5 or 0.05, and then one that's smaller, right, like a 0.2, 0.3. And so I'm just using Pilot pens and Sharpie markers for this. And so what we're going to use for the toy is the first time around, we're going to go ahead and outline nice and clean. It should not look sketchy. It should kind of look like contour line. So you want to carefully just outline and make it look smooth and connected. So you don't want it to like not touch. You want to make sure that you touch it and it's nice and clean. So you don't really want to pick up the pen while you do this. If you are lining and you're like, it's like a really, really like small area, so like maybe through here, it's okay to swap and use your pen for some of these really small details. And this pen is not wanting to work so great on the tracing paper. Oh, there it goes, just need to start up. Right, but once again, nice and clean. So the Sharpie marker will bleed a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna have you do this on all of your details. Okay, so all edges. So I finished tracing the whole thing. Notice that it's nice and smooth, it's not sketchy. So what I'm gonna do is put the marker away. We're using this to make it stand out and be bold, but to do the line weight, we're actually gonna use the pen. It tends to bleed less. So what we're gonna do is designate the bottom of our drawing. So I'm gonna bring back my drawing again, right? This is the bottom. So anything that is horizontal or perpendicular to it, so the bottom edges of things, is where I'm going to put some more thickness. I don't want to say, oh, this is the bottom of the bug, and then turn it, it stays one direction. So when you're doing this, you kind of have to look at, see where the bottom is. And so like on the body, right, it starts to become, you know, this is on the diagonal. I could pretty much go over this a couple of times and just thicken the bottom edge, right, nice and clean. Right, we also, once again, don't want this to be sketchy. So you kind of just thicken it up, keeping it nice and smooth, right? And so then when it is becoming, right, and it starts to round out, right, and becomes going vertical again, you want to have a gradual transition to thin. So you're going to basically be doing from thick to thin. So if I flip this up, I'm going to show you this here. So on things that are round, right, you're going to have like a curve, right? And on things that are flat, you'll have, right, maybe a horizontal line. And so then as it goes up, it's going to be thin, and then as it, you know, becomes the bottom, it gets thicker, and then it goes thin again. So it's okay to kind of outline it and then fill it in. Okay, notice I'm doing this with the pen, and I want to fill it in solid. I don't want it to really get thicker than maybe 2 to 3 line widths, right? But the nice thing about this is, let's say you accidentally do something bumpy, you could clean it up just a little bit and make it have a gradual transition, right? If it's something flat, you'll just go over it a couple of times to thicken it, and you want it to look consistent. Okay, so let me move this here so those background lines don't matter, right? So what I want to do is to not thicken all of these. I only want to thicken things that are bottoms. So maybe I will do, so we have this wing here. Maybe we just do a little bit on this part here so that stands out, right? This leg here, right, it's got a rounded part. I'm going to go from thick to thin and make it stand out from that segment. Right? So a lot of times when you're looking at your object, it's going to be where you can see some darkness or some shadow. But we're not going to shade this per se. We're going to really work on consistency. So we're just going to line weight bottom edges of things. So like right around here, right? You do this for any detail that is towards the edge, towards the bottom of your image. Now this is pretty horizontal, that little curve, so I'm going to thicken all of this up, and it can be pretty consistent, just like that straight line. But I'm not going to thicken that top line, right? That's going to start making it look more 3D. Notice how it really stands out. So let me just do a little bit more, and then you can get to your practice. Right, so don't thicken sides, only bottoms. Make it nice and clean.